Welcome, everybody. I'd love to just start meditating a little bit and give people time to sign on. And I'll share more in a little bit. Thank you. Thank you for joining today, and thank you for your presence in the meditation. I'm excited about this class. It's never come forward to offer a class with this specificity of really looking at the different dimensional bodies and addressing them, in terms of people's questions and personal experience. So I'd like to just share a little bit about my, I guess, a little bit about my experience, and we can see where it goes from there. Your questions will be really helpful because they'll elicit potentially more detailed answers in helping you understand all these layers that are just part of who we are, and that we're opening up to as a race. As humanity continues to awaken and open unto itself, more and more people are going to be experiencing these aspects of themselves, and it can be confusing and sometimes frightening, and I'd just love to help support people navigating the inner terrain, the inner outer terrain. It's the same thing when you go in this way. So you can send your questions through just regular email, and at different points I'll just check the email and read your questions and respond to them. So let me just be quiet for a second, and then I'll just speak. Well, I think I'll just give a little overview first, and that I want to make the distinction between nothing and the dimensional bodies, because there can be confusion. So in my experience, there's no end point. That every time there's an opening to a new dimensional body or new plane of consciousness, new realm of consciousness, every time there's an opening, it's larger, more inclusive than what was previously experienced as the resting point of consciousness. And there doesn't seem to be an end. And every time, for me anyway, that there's been an opening to the next overarching aspect of consciousness, the human experience is, oh, this is it. I got it. I've ascended. I've whatever, whatever word you want to use. And my experience is that doesn't end. And the joy and elation of discovery is also endless. So it's not that I'm not wanting to, I just want to acknowledge that joy that happens, and it's a beautiful thing, and that it's an unending, joyous self-discovery, an unending, joyous unfolding. And so I want to make the distinction between that unending unfolding and opening to or waking to nothing. And because at each of these dimensions of consciousness or realms of consciousness, because there's a sense of self, there's form to that. There's an energetic envelope that recognizes an individuated perception. And I feel like I'm about to share too much and I'm not breaking it down the right way. So I'm just going to keep speaking, and I'll bring it all together at the end if I haven't managed to do that by speaking about the parts. So my experience is that on each realm, there's an individuated sense of self that can also see through its individuated envelope or individuated lens of perception, can see through that paradigm of I am as that sense of self, can see through that to the whole plane. So what might be a familiar experience for people is opening up into that sense of oneness. Where on this plane, your physical plane, you can feel your individuated sense of personhood and open through meditation, or maybe it's part of your just daily experience of experiencing all of the material world as being one with you in oneness. So that's what I'm speaking to, that there can be the individuated sense of self, but then can open and be the whole plane. And on each dimensional frequency or each realm of consciousness, it appears to be the same. So one can open up to or wake up to the next larger overarching sense of self with an individuated lens, and then see through that individuated lens on that realm, and then experience oneself as continuous or contiguous through the whole, as the whole plane, as the whole realm. And so far for me, this hasn't stopped. And the part that I was wanting to make the distinction between is that process. I guess there are a few distinctions between the sense of self and oneness in each realm as one part of the unfolding. And I want to differentiate that between opening, and opening is not quite the right word. It's more surrendering to oblivion. I don't know what words to use. I often use the word nothing or nothingness in my writing or my language. And so that's a very different part of the process. And the first time that happened for me, that the experience was resting as the infinite I am, oneness, singular I am of consciousness. And that I am fell back into, surrendered into, was sucked back into nothing, where there was no experience, no experiencer, no self to reference anything, nothing to reference. There was complete cessation of being. And it wasn't until the return of that I am, the infinite singular I am, in the return, the reappearance of that singular I am, there was a recognition that I am is fabricated, that it is a created, manifested thing, or manifested consciousness. And The first time that happened, it was a shock, because I hadn't studied any of this material, so no one had told me. It wasn't anything I knew about, and all the benchmarks before, as I mentioned, all felt in the experiencing of them as the pinnacle realization. So when the individuated self opened to oneness, the feeling was, oh, this is it. I've arrived. I'm one, right? Oneness, and then every time that's happened, it still feels that way. But this one was different. And now that experience, and it's funny, it's hard to use the word experience, because there was no one experiencing, and there still is no one experiencing. Words are so can get one so tangled up here. Let me try this again. There's a simultaneousness in being, a simultaneousness of I am in the individuated expression, in the individuated lens, and the experience of oneness through that whole plane. There's a simultaneity of that and not existing. So now they're experienced, and again, that word I can't quite use. It's just that they're simultaneous. And there's been a greater comfort or ease in the surrendering of any sense of I am, whether the individuated lens or the unified lens. There's a greater ease in surrendering that I am as nothing. And so even though this evolutionary, gorgeous, joyous, miraculous, unbelievable unfolding continues, that unfolding is not separate from the lived realization of non-existence. So when we talk about these different dimensional bodies throughout this course, I want to just start from the get-go of making the distinction between the form, the experience of being, the experience of existing, the experience of gorgeous evolution and unfolding. The distinction between all of that and the recognition, realization, lived, the lived, I don't know what word to use, the living nothing, right? Words fail me, but I think I'm being clear in what I'm attempting to express here. So, and in that comfort with not existing, I mean, that's in some ways that's that's it. That's the key. Let me be quiet for a second. When we're free from existing, then it is safe for everything to be. When we are free from existing and infinitely simultaneously rest as nothing, then there's nothing to fear, and one can be anything. It's okay to feel anything, live anything, be anything, because it simultaneously doesn't exist. And in the recognition of that, the lived experience returns to nothing more quickly. And so painful things don't linger as long, because we don't identify with them and keep manifesting them, perpetuating them into being. So I want to go back to a point that I was in the process of making and kind of took myself off of, because there's so much that I want to share, and that was about the resting as, or the recognition, the lived recognition of not existing, of non-existence, and that every time there's a shift, consciousness surrenders fully through itself as nothing. And in that greater comfort and ease, familiarity with not existing, the sense of self becomes more familiar with, being sucked into a vacuum single point and not existing, right? That each transition, the shifting between the realms, feels like that. And it can feel like that from the perspective of the small lens, or the individuated lens, to the lens of the whole consciousness of that realm, of that plane. So making the distinction between these is important, the different levels of consciousness, or realms of consciousness, and this truth of non-existence. So I think maybe I'll just pause there for a second and see if there are questions about this first piece. So yeah, let's do that. So I'll just check email, and I have a suspicion that I may make this, or at least parts of this class, available to other people, because it seems like there was a clear explanation in the beginning of some really key things that I think can be confusing for people. So since that just kind of appeared in my mind, I'll also just let people know that if that is what happens, that there's 5 more sessions to this class if people want to sign up. So that was not the initial intention at all, but a thought just appeared. I'll also just let you know too, in terms of this class series, whether people are, whether you're working with me in a class series or one of the 4-session healing series, either way, the scope of the container isn't just the individual sessions or classes. There's a way that I'm present with your consciousness through the entire series. So it's not like we only meet for these 6 classes, or 4 sessions if you're doing one of the healing sessions. there's a way that, for whatever reason, it's just how it works. There's a way that when you sign up, you're signing up for a something larger. Actually, it's like you're signing up for this container that holds you through the whole thing. So it's more like you're being held for the 6 weeks, and not just a class. And I just want to let you know that, I guess, to let you know, but also to know that there's support, right? There's an extra kind of support when you've committed in this way. And the guides and the beings that are the angels, the devas, like the whole, the whole healing consciousness awakening party is present and available.